Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles, the Friday podcast about your Kindle, books, and all things Amazon. I'm Len Edgerly. Today is the longest day of the year, June 21st, 2019. Greetings from Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm down in the basement because the rest of the house is still under construction. Tomorrow, Darlene and I will head up to Maine, probably through the end of August, so we've got another one of our transitions looming, which always makes me a little crazy, so it's a good thing that I have to put the show together because there's some focus to the day amidst all the things that I haven't packed yet. My conversation that you're going to hear in this episode is with a bright young man, a 20-year-old, who is at the Technical University of Munich, and he's come up with a way that enables us to read newsletters on our Kindles, especially our e-ink Kindles. His name is Noah Magel.
The thing that we're doing is we're changing the newsletter into a Kindle-friendly format, and then we forward them automatically.
It's called N2 Kindle. That's the letter N, the number 2, and then Kindle, and you'll hear about it in the interview. Also in this episode, I have some news stories I'm going to talk to you about, and also an account of a tour that Darlene and I took of an Amazon fulfillment center in Fall River, Massachusetts. It was about an hour-and-a-half drive here from Cambridge, and my 13-year-old grandson, James, accompanied us, and that gave another way to look at the experience. More news and a tech tip about how the new iOS 13 operating system for the iPhone and the iPad that's coming out this September is going to offer a pretty nice opportunity to transfer things to a Kindle, even if you don't have Wi-Fi available. First up in news, I want to tell you about the fulfillment center that we visited in Fall River. Now, I signed up for this not as a member of the media, but just taking advantage of Amazon's offer to let customers see fulfillment centers. There are about 23 of them available around the country that you can sign up for on the web for a tour. And I signed up for Darlene and me, and then we later added James, my grandson, to go as well. I didn't have, it was clear that there was no recording by video or audio in the tour. That was part of the ground rules. I didn't think it would be cool to be writing in my pocket notebook either. Now, the tour guide, George, came up to me in the waiting area. There were about 23 of us there. Half of us were kids like James, even younger. And he said, "You have a blog or something, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a podcast." And so he had learned via the public relations group that had helped me to add James to the tour that I was going to be there. And I said, I'm here just as a customer and interested person. And he said there are media tours that I could arrange for, which do enable someone to do some filming and recording. So I might take advantage of that. But in any event, what I'm going to tell you about my impressions of the warehouse are all from memory. I didn't have the benefit of any notes. And it was impressive. I mean, the place is huge. It was 24 football fields of interior space, and it was immaculate. It was clean everywhere. The equipment was not as modern as there would be. There's a New Jersey fulfillment center that, because it handles smaller units of products, has more of the robotic equipment that I saw out at Remars in Las Vegas. But this has pretty amazing technology just in the conveyor belts, and they aren't belts, they're these rollers, and the packages just zip along, and they get scanned, and then a label gets sort of air floated down onto the package, and then these chutes are available to the trucks, and the scanner sees where it's going to go, and as the package goes to the ramp that kind of takes it off from the main chute down into the truck, these little pushers, I guess you'd call them, come out and divert the package at just the right moment to go to the truck. I found it mesmerizing. We stood there a little higher and watched all of this happen. And the equipment and the vehicles that get the items from the tall shelves and then put them in cages to get delivered to the right place. All very impressive. I think there are about 1,100 people working in this facility. I I guess it struck me on kind of an emotional level or a aesthetic level. It's a nearly impossible task to think of the number of packages that are going through. And in this particular place, they handle everything from canoes on down, some really large items. And to get each one to the customer in a day or 2 days, it's just mind-boggling. And then when you actually see it happening and you see the boxes and you see the labels and you see the people doing their work, there's kind of a disconnect between the mind saying, this really shouldn't be happening. There isn't any way for humans to do this, and yet there it is happening. And the error rate on packages, I think, it's nearly infinitesimal at these places. And so, covering Amazon the way I have in the podcast for so long, this was really quite an experience for me. Darlene, I asked her afterward what her impressions were. She said it was just amazing. She loved the technology. She felt like it looked like a good place to work, good jobs. The wages are minimum of $15 as the starting wage, and the benefits are the same as Jeff Bezos has at all levels. Compared with the rest of the world, Darlene said this looks like a pretty good place to work, and she was impressed at how everything had been thought out. There were a zillion ways of figuring out how to make this work, and it did make her wish she could see a fulfillment center that did have robots. So I think that maybe we'll have some kind of a road trip to New Jersey to see the one down there. Now, my grandson James, 13, a very creative young man and strong opinions about any number of things, including politics. And I wasn't sure how he was reacting during the tour, but I talked to him the following day and said, could you just give me some impressions, because I'm going to be talking about this on the show. And he was very thoughtful. I just jotted down some notes as we were talking on the phone. And he thought that it looked like a tough job for workers. They only get 30 minutes for lunch. They're doing jobs where they're constantly repeating things. And at one point, George, the tour guide, said that if somebody mistakenly puts an item in the wrong place, they get coached. He used the word coaching. And James thought that sounded a little creepy. He said, is the coaching really friendly? Is coaching just sort of a euphemism for some fairly harsh encounter that happens if you make a mistake and you're the one out of a million item that doesn't get to where it's supposed to go? But James thought it looked well run. He was impressed that safety was such a priority. He thought it actually got to a little bit robotic, because these vehicles that carry the products up and down this huge warehouse, where there are intersections where people might be crossing, they stop and they beep as they're going through, whether or not there's anybody even close. And I thought that was showing a pretty tight regimen of safety practice. And James agreed the safety was good, but he kind of worried about the robotics. He also didn't totally take without questioning it this idea that Amazon is obsessed with customers. He thought, well, if I'm an employee and the company is famously obsessed with customers, what about me? Maybe there should be more balance for the needs of the customers and the employees. He thought our tour guide was nice, had a lot to say, knew what he was talking about. And James, too, was very impressed with the technology, the conveyors, but he was quite aware of a question which comes up a lot, which is if they just keep finding cool machines that do these things, what happens to the jobs? For example, one very human bit of work which remains is when the packages get to the trucks, there are folks in there who are packing the trucks the way I love to pack the car when we go on a trip. And so far, that's not a task which they've been able to automate. Maybe 5 years from now, they probably will. The tour, I think, is stepping back. I noticed when Amazon started doing this, I think it was fairly recently. And in the tour, I noticed the care that they're putting into it. This was about an hour-and-a-half tour, and George, our guide, was very knowledgeable. He'd worked at Amazon for 10 years, and he really knew the operation. And he was putting a lot of care into the experience of these 20 people. And as I said, half of them were James's age or younger. I guess I thought this makes good sense from a PR point of view generally at a time when there are questions about Amazon and other tech companies. Should they be broken up? What are the what's sort of the public profile of them? But even more, I think it's, take James. He's 13. In 5 years, he could get a job at Amazon. I don't think he's likely to. He's probably headed for higher education and maybe is going to have some other options available to him. But for people who are looking for workers, like Amazon is, to get the word out in a fairly personal way that this is an interesting place to work. And a lot of the tour information was about how good the benefits are, and you can get trained to another career if you want on Amazon's dollar. And so it was not actually recruiting, but preparing people for seeing these places as good places to work. Now, as this comes at a time when, particularly in a political season, you are seeing some statements about Amazon that the company is pushing back on. Sometimes there'll be things brought up and the official word from Amazon will be no comment. But lately, in a couple of instances, one, Joe Biden had made a point about how Amazon hadn't paid any taxes. And at Amazon News, which is their Twitter account, pointed out that Amazon pays all of its taxes and that the tax breaks that Amazon takes advantage of for doing things like investing in the U.S. or creating jobs. All these things have purposes which Congress has set up, and when companies take advantage of them for the purposes that they're designed, if someone thinks this is a bad thing, then at Amazon News was saying that that's probably an issue that they need to bring up with Congress. And, of course, Biden's been in Congress for a long time. There was another item. It was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had accused Amazon of starvation wages. This is a TV clip I saw, and that generated information from at Amazon News pointing out that the $15 an hour minimum wage at an Amazon facility, 43% of workers in the U.S. make less than that. And then Jay Carney, who's the head of public affairs of the company, weighed in and requested that AOC, as she's known, stop making things up about Amazon and try getting Congress to pass a $15 federal minimum wage. Federal minimum wage now is $7. So at a time when a company as big as Amazon is under scrutiny, as they said last week at Remars, tours are a good idea, and fairly punchy comments that go up 5 hours after an attack on the company. They don't defend everything, but things I think that make it look like it's a bad place to work are always going to be rebutted in various ways. Very interesting tour. If you've got one that's available to you anywhere near you, I'd really recommend it. I just the things that are happening in these places, and this Fall River facility was built 3 years ago. At the time, brand new, and now there's been a lot more fulfillment centers that are even more modern, or at least newer. I think there are about 75 of these fulfillment centers in North America. In other news this week, a new version of the Kindle Oasis, that's the top-of-the-line Kindle product. It was released quite quietly. I did receive an embargoed press release the evening before the embargo came off on June 19th at 6 a.m. Pacific time. The main thing about this new Oasis is that the front light, which is the light which makes it readable in the dark, can now be changed color. It can, in the images of it, it's sort of a yellowish or an amber color, or it can be sort of the current color of the Oasis, which is more of a white color. And the implication being that if you're reading at night, this softer, yellower, warmer color is something which might be pleasant. You can also apparently adjust it automatically so that it'll change from one color to the other for sunrise and sunset. It's also got the next generation e-ink screen technology. The only thing which was said about that in the material was that the page turns are faster. I'm not sure if that's really going to be a noticeable improvement, but faster page turns are, of course, better. Everything else about the Oasis seems to be the same. It's waterproof. You can listen to Audible books with Bluetooth. Has a 300 pixels per inch display, 7-inch diagonal screen. I don't think there's any change in the dimensions of this Kindle Oasis, so the current covers will fit it. I don't think there's going to be a need for all new covers. There is one kind of sexy change to it in that you can now get it in champagne gold, and the current one is graphite, so the champagne gold might look kind of nice. Prices are the same, $250 for 8 gigabytes, $280 for 32 gigabytes. You can add $20 to either of those if you don't want the special offers. And for $350, which comes with the 32 gigabytes, you can get the 4G. Will I get one? It's tempting. I always like to have the latest Kindle. This one is testing that proclivity I have. I might go just because of the champagne gold, and I would be curious to see if I can tell any difference in the new technology on the e-ink screen. I like that they are updating this is now the Oasis had been updated last about 2 years ago, a little shy of 2 years, and I thought that this might be the next one that would get an update, and sure enough it did. So that Kindle team is pretty active. I received another item from Amazon's Public Relations Department. They have an Off to College store that they've created, and they sent out a really long release about all the things that you can do if you're a college student. It's a one-stop shop for college students, and it has they mentioned someone, Ava Philippe, and there was an area where you could buy the things for your dorm room that Ava Philippe has in her dorm room. And I didn't know who Ava Philippe was. I thought maybe she was one of these YouTube influencers. Well, it turns out she is the 19-year-old daughter of Reese Witherspoon, and it looks quite a lot like Reese Witherspoon. And so she has a dorm room somewhere. I couldn't find out where she's going to college that's full of things that Amazon has purchased. And then in return, she's touting these items, quite tasteful. It looks like she has good taste. Why wouldn't she? And so that's part of the fun aspect of this college site. So if you want to check this out, if you've got somebody going off to college, you might want to go to amazon.com/off-to-college, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes. Tech tip: if you're interested in connecting your Kindle to your iPhone, you're going to be able to do that when this new operating system, iOS 13, comes to iPhones and iPads sometime in September probably. You would be able to use a USB 3 camera adapter from Apple that sells for $31 at Amazon to connect your iPhone with your Kindle. And then in this demo that was picked up, shown on YouTube by somebody named Napabar, and then covered at 9 to 5 Mac by Chance Miller. Once the two devices were connected, he downloaded a book from Project Gutenberg to the iPhone and then was able to drag it over to the Kindle using this cable setup. And so it was a pretty nifty way to get something from an iPhone to a Kindle if the Kindle didn't have Wi-Fi and couldn't otherwise get the book itself without that. So that's because the iOS 13 is going to provide some new ways to manage files from the iPhone. You'll also be able to move things to USB sticks and other hardware. And this fellow just happened to figure out that, I wonder if that would work with a Kindle. Sure enough, it did. Noah Magel is a student at the Technical University of Munich, which has more than 41,000 students and whose graduates have earned 17 Nobel Prizes since 1927. Noah came to my attention via listener Mark Isero of the Highlighter newsletter because Mark is a private beta tester for a product that Noah is creating with a fellow student, John Eilenstein. The product is named N2Kindle, and it's designed to make it easy to subscribe and read email newsletters on e-ink Kindles. I reached Noah by Skype in his apartment in Munich, Germany on Tuesday, June 18th. I began by asking him for some biographical background. One note, early on, Noah refers to MVP, and that's an acronym for Minimum Viable Product.
So I'm 20 years old, and I finished high school in Germany, I think 2 years ago about. And then I did several internships at first I did an internship at Airbus, the aircraft company, because I'm interested in technology in that way. And then I did an internship at a startup in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
So I gained my first work experience there, and then I started studying last year at the Technical University of Munich, and the study program is called Technology and Management. So it's a mix of about 60 to 70% business and 30% technology.
And this will be a 4-year program leading to a bachelor's degree?
Yes, it's a bachelor's degree, but it's in Europe or in Germany, it's 3 years.
Oh, okay.
So it's, I think the last year of high school counts as 1 year of university or something like that, and so that's why it's a bit shorter.
And so when do you expect to graduate?
2021.
What led to starting N2Kindle?
I own a Kindle for a couple of years now. I love it. You don't have to carry all your books around. It's a great display compared to a phone or an iPad or tablet in general. So I love the Kindle. And a friend of mine, his name is John, and we were talking about it. And he and I really love reading email newsletters. So in the morning, you get a email newsletter with summaries for the day, all the news. It keeps you up to date. And at the time, there wasn't an option to read them on the Kindle, or to read them easily on the Kindle. And so we started thinking about how could we build a service or a tool that would allow you to read the email newsletters on your Kindle. So that's really why we started it, just because we ourselves wanted to have the product. So just started playing around. And last year in May, I think we had a sort of MVP, if you can call it, so very rough product that was very bad. So we really had to improve that a lot. And the great thing about the N2Kindle is that we really learn and improve with the product. So we are gaining skills by improving the product. If that makes sense. So John is more the technical guy, and he is a much better developer and programmer this year than he was last year.
This is his a tutorial that he's giving himself to improve.
Yes.
Well, let's explain how it works. It seems like you're mainly you have the reader in mind. So this is a way for us to find newsletters, maybe that we already read online with the web. But from the point of view of someone who, like you, loves to read email newsletters, what do they have to do to sign up, and how does it actually work?
So you mean for people who own a Kindle and would like to try the service?
Yes.
So they can. Right now, we are in what we call a private beta mode, which means we're not currently accepting any more people, any more users, and any more testers. We have. I sent you, I think, a document. We have about 100 testers right now, and we are getting feedback from them. They're great, and we want to improve the product a lot before we invite more. But they can. I mean, if anyone is interested, they can visit n2kindle.com. That's our website. and they can sign up for when we launch to the public. So we're planning on that to be maybe in mid-July, something like that.
And I've been using it under the private beta, and it seems like what I did was I gave you the email address of one of my Kindle devices, and then I chose from a list of about 20 newsletters that I could subscribe to, and then they just magically started appearing on my Kindle, and they're very pleasant to read on the Kindle because the Kindle is a great way to read. And is that when you get into a public release, is that still going to be the model that people will go to Kindle.com and choose newsletters to subscribe to and specify which device the new issues of the newsletter will be delivered to?
Exactly. So what you said there with them sending them to the Kindle, what we basically do is we change, because some people ask, can't they just do it themselves? Can't they just send the email newsletters to the Kindle themselves? And they could probably. But the thing that we're doing is we're changing the newsletter into a Kindle-friendly format, and then we forward them automatically. So it would be a huge hassle to do that by yourself and to do that every morning or every edition that you want to receive. And so that's the thing that we're doing in the background, so to speak. And that will stay the same for the public launch.
So if I were to go to a newsletter like Axios is one that I've subscribed to, I could go on my computer, go to the day's issue, and I could send to Kindle using an add-on to my Google browser, and it would be sent to my Kindle devices, but it wouldn't look as nice as the ones that you're sending me because I wouldn't have done any formatting to make it look nice.
Yes, exactly. So that's the first thing, and then the second thing is just the automatically happening every day. So.
Yeah, it would be cumbersome. I think I've subscribed to 3 or 4 of the newsletters. If every day I had to go to each of those sites and send that issue to my Kindle, that would be a lot of work compared to what happens automatically with Enter Kindle. Now, it looked like I could also, for a while, I was sending it to my Fire tablet. So if somebody wanted to, they could use the program, not necessarily to send to their Paperwhite or whatever. What other devices could they send the newsletter to?
So currently, it only works for the Kindle devices. So any kind of e-reader from Amazon that has a Kindle email address. I'm not sure how it works with Kobo and other players. We would have to explore that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and since I do have a Kindle address for my, my Fire tablet, I can use Enter Kindle to send it to this. But I think that sort of misses the advantage because when I'm reading on the e-ink Kindle, it's a little more quiet. There's less that can happen when I'm reading on the Kindle. Was that sort of your and John's idea? Is that you get the newsletter into this dedicated reading space, and you can somehow read it with more attention?
Mm-hmm, definitely. So we actually never had it in mind for people to use it on the Kindle Fire HD or whatever product they're using. They can. I mean, we don't care. Yeah. But they could also just subscribe to the Axios newsletter themselves and then just get them in their inbox, I assume. But so the idea was that we wanted to read it on the e-ink display where it wasn't possible to do to receive the newsletters before.
And are there other advantages of the e-ink display that you think are important for reading newsletters?
I mean, I just think it's a modern way of reading news. It has the nice readability of a traditional newspaper. But it's in the small format. You can receive any kind of newsletter you'd like.
Yeah, I think that's true because I think I read more slowly and with more comprehension when I'm reading on my e-ink newsletter. When I'm reading on my computer or on a tablet, it seems like I'm more in a fast mode of scanning. I'm just sort of skimming the surface of the news. And sometimes it's good to start the day thinking about the news, not just skimming it. There's a guy who listens to the podcast, Mark Isero, who has a newsletter called Highlighter. And do you see this as a way to make it easier for someone who is creating a newsletter to get it to readers?
Yes. So I think Mark is also a beta user, by the way.
In fact, that's how I heard about you, is he told me about it. So he must be one of your first beta users.
Yes. So yeah, definitely. So there are, right now we have 20 newsletters just because those are the most popular options. But we'd love to have every newsletter in the world to be in the service. And so, yeah, we're working on trying to make it easier for people to submit newsletter requests, or authors that could approach us and say, hey, I have this newsletter, could you integrate the service or integrate the newsletter into the service? And then I'm not sure if you know Substack and Revue or something like that. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. Those are tools that allow authors to start their own newsletter and to potentially charge for them and stuff like that. And we would like to partner with those services as well to have them integrated into the service right from the start. It could be a way for authors of newsletters to reach more people, or to reach people on a different device and a different setting than if it's just on the phone or tablet or whatever.
Right. Now, do you think that once you get that part of it set up and you have more newsletter creators using your platform, will you be able to give them any information that you have about how many people are subscribing and which issues they're reading, so that you can help the newsletter creator understand their audience?
Yeah, so right now we can already track, obviously, how many people subscribe to a certain edition and stuff like that. And we have to see if it's possible to track stuff like how many people actually opened the newsletter, how many people clicked on certain links and stuff like that. I would say that's a bit further down the line, but we try to be as transparent as possible and share all the information that we have with the author of the newsletter. We're working on providing more information.
Right. Now, have you looked far enough down the road to see a business model where there would be revenue to offset the cost and the time that you're putting into this?
So we definitely want to try and monetize the service. We'll have to see how big of a problem we solve, if it's actually worth paying for. If it's worth paying for, then we would probably consider we haven't decided yet, but we could imagine a small subscription fee of $1 to $3 a month, something like that, or maybe a one-time fee of $10, or maybe we can also have a freemium business model where you can receive a certain amount of newsletters for free. We haven't decided yet. Maybe you pay per edition. Who knows? And we're also thinking about maybe sharing that revenue with the content creators, so the people that actually write the newsletters.
Yeah. Now, you probably see a lot of newsletters as you're working on this. You've got 20 that you're making available, and it sounds like you and John were reading newsletters before you did this. If you were going to give advice to somebody starting a newsletter, what are the ones that you think are most successful attracting readers in terms of how long they are or the way they're written? It seems like they always have a lot of bullets and things, but do you have experience in seeing enough newsletters to give an idea of how to succeed making a newsletter?
I'm not sure if I can give that specific advice, but I can say that I love Substack, that service, because it really, there's newsletters by Axios. Is that how you
Yep.
pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
They're great. They give you an overview of the daily news and stuff like that, but I think it's a whole nother dimension if it's written by a private person, just anyone who has a specific interest in a certain topic, and they just write about music, for example. And usually on Substack, the newsletters are a bit longer, so they might be 10, 15 minutes to read. Not a lot of links, because I think that's also something that's kind of hard on the Kindle. You really just want to read and read and read and read until the end, and many newsletters have a lot of links where you have to click on them to read the full story and stuff like that. So yeah, I enjoy those kind of newsletters where you have that aspect of maybe a normal citizen writing about a certain topic that they're passionate about, and where the edition is 10 to 15 minutes long.
It sounds like as part of your future design plans, you'd like it so that if I subscribe to 5 newsletters, they could all land in a folder on my Kindle, so that they're not sort of spread out on the home page. But what are some of your ideas to make it easier for a reader to get to the newsletters they're subscribing to?
Right now, so if you subscribe to 5 newsletters and you get 5 newsletters a day, each and every one of them is a single item on the Kindle home screen, which is not super great. It can be, it does have an advantage if you like to read each topic on its own, or each newsletter on its own, and you want to be in that focused on that. But we're working on a way that all of the editions that you subscribe to will be bundled into one folder, so that your home screen isn't cluttered with 10 newsletters of the last couple of days, which should make it much nicer.
And then I think another one of your ideas was that I might say I have a job, or my schedule of work, Thursday is the best day for me to catch up with all my newsletters. Do you think you might be able to have all of my subscriptions arrive just on that day?
Exactly. So we're working also on a scheduling feature where you could say, okay, I'd like to receive this, or this newsletter usually comes at 6 a.m. I'd like it to be sent to my Kindle at 8 p.m. Or you could say, okay, I want to have all my newsletters sent to me on Sunday, because that's when I want to catch up with news. I want to do a lot of reading on that day. So much more flexibility in when you get the newsletters. Should be coming soon.
How much time are you and John spending on N2 Kindle at this point?
Too much.
You do have some schoolwork to do, I assume.
We do have some schoolwork to do. Also, too much from a financial perspective, I guess, because we do have jobs on the side, and we could be working a lot more. It's hard to put into numbers, but it's probably something like 20 hours a week or so. Yeah. It's also a lot of, it stays with you in your head, even though you don't work on it. You do think about, certain problems or certain features that you'd like to have in the future, and that we don't know yet how we can build them. So we have to see, how could it be possible? Yeah, so I'm sure it's probably the same with the show.
Yeah, right. Always thinking about what's next.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Do you imagine that it might turn out to be a full-time job once you graduate, or are you assuming that you'll be looking for work at a technology company of some kind once you have that degree in technology and business?
That's a very hard question to answer, because I'd love it to become more than just a hobby. And I think there's potential to at least make a small amount of income on the side. That's actually also why I wrote you an email asking how many Kindle devices were sold worldwide, because it's hard to figure out how big the market actually is. It's sort of a niche product. But if you have a very good product and you have a couple 1,000 users only, and they all pay a small fee, it might be possible to continue working on this full time in the future. Yeah.
As you've worked on this specific project, have you imagined any other types of activities that would take advantage of the Kindle platform that this might lead to?
Two things, or maybe three things we've thought about. The first one is podcast show notes.
Yes.
We know that some podcasts publish the show notes from the podcast, so just all the dialogue, what people said, all the entire content basically, which is a lot of pages.
Yeah.
Times. Maybe it was Mark actually that requested that as a feature. It might have been him. I'm not sure. We're thinking about working with other podcasts, and we have to see if they want to share show notes, or if they even have show notes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be another great addition to, besides having newsletters on the Kindle, you could also read the show notes from a podcast. So that would be one area. In general, we're just thinking about, the Kindle is a great reading device, but it's mostly limited to books. And there's some workarounds how you can get more content on your Kindle. You mentioned the send to Kindle button. You can send some stuff there, but it's not super easy. It's not like one central hub where you can access a lot of documents that you'd like to have on the Kindle. And so another idea would be to have PDF documents of any kind. I mean, it could be stuff like about coding, mm-hmm. or everything. There are PDF documents for everything. We have to see about who owns the PDF documents and stuff like that. But it would be cool to have a central hub. You can choose by categories, and you can just discover great PDF documents that you can then send to your Kindle, receive them, and read them. The third thing that we're thinking about is actually it's because we've run into some issues with the newsletters with the readability.
Mm-hmm.
They don't all look great, and it's really hard to make them all look great, because if you change something with the code for one newsletter, and it looks great. I think we had the Skim that we
mm-hmm.
tested it with, which looked really fantastic. It was just like a book. The pictures rendered and everything was great, but then it breaks for the next newsletter that you try it with. So finding that one formula is really tricky. So we're thinking about maybe curating our own newsletters. So we would work with the authors of the different newsletters. They write their stuff that they distribute on their normal newsletter, and we could take it and make it into a much nicer format, and take several sources and have a curated daily digest or something like that.
Yeah, and if you did that, you might be able to vary the coding for each specific newsletter so that they all looked good.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it sounds like there could be a lot more hours each week that you could be working on this.
That could be, yeah.
Do you have anyone in your life, like a mother or a romantic friend, who says you need to work on your studies and quit wasting your time on this end to Kindle thing?
My mother definitely tells me to do more for university, but and she's right. Yeah. So, but I'm sure she's also proud that I'm working on stuff like that, where I could be doing other stuff.
Yeah, it could be worse.
Yeah, exactly.
You're 20 after all. There could be lots of things to spend 20 hours a week on that would not be as productive and useful as this.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. I love the idea that in Munich there are two guys working on a project that is a benefit to me as a Kindle user, because this is a new way to read newsletters, and it fascinates me when Amazon created this platform. You know, there are self-published authors, there are lots of people who have decided to do things because of this platform that are creative and that help other people. And it's kind of a worldwide laboratory at this point, and you're a part of it.
Exactly. It's a whole ecosystem in some way.
Yeah.
And I think, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this. Don't you think that Amazon could do more? It seems like the Kindle has sort of drifted off into a side project, and it's all about Alexa and all of these other projects. And I mean, there's so many Kindle readers who love the product, who are super passionate, and it feels like they're not updating they could actively participate in the whole ecosystem. They could build a service, but 10 times as good with all their resources, and they could. I'm sure you've heard of Readwise.
Yes.
Where you do your daily highlights and stuff like that. It seems like they could really build great products, but for some reason they aren't as focused on the Kindle anymore.
Yeah, I think I've had that worry that it's become kind of an orphan given the success of Alexa. But on the other hand, whenever I talk to people who are on the Kindle team, executives, vice presidents of one kind or another, it seems like they are almost at a startup, that they're always trying to do new things. And it's a challenge because we've had so many Kindles in 10 years that the next new Kindle, it might be a little faster, a little lighter, these kind of marginal improvements. But I wouldn't be surprised if at Lab 126 or these places where they invent new products, there are teams of people just sitting around with big ideas about what might be done next. And I think that's where someone like you from outside the company, they hear about this newsletter area, and then maybe they think about what might happen. It's a challenge, I think, because sometimes someone like you comes up with an idea, then Amazon has its own version of it, and it's very tough to compete. If they come out with a really beautiful newsletter platform for the Kindle, I guess you'll have some satisfaction that you launched a good idea, but there goes your business. Yeah,
that's true.
But that's the risk you take, and the advantage of being on the outside is you have total freedom to imagine what you might work on. And I mean, I think no matter what happens, it probably has a good outcome.
Yeah. I loved the podcast you did with Tracy Schultz.
Yes.
I think it was a couple of weeks back, because that was, it gave me hope that they're still actively working on new, cool ideas, and that it didn't drift off too far.
Yeah, I had that same feeling, and I was glad that she was responsible not just for the e-Kindles, but the Fire and the phones, and it must be kind of a tough job to keep the idea of Kindle content working effectively on all those different devices. And I didn't know that job existed until I talked to her, so I was glad to hear that it does. Well, great. Anything else we forgot to mention that you'd like to add?
One thing I forgot to mention is, I mentioned it on the briefly on the site, is we want to actively approach authors of newsletters and try and work with them. And so if there are any newsletters out there, we're also right now in the process of contacting them. What we would like to do is just because, as I mentioned, the product will not be super expensive, and so it's hard to gain new users through. We can't afford ads, basically, if you only get $2 a month or something for the service. And so what we want to do is we have a small button. It can be a HTML snippet or something like that, and newsletters can integrate that into their newsletter right at the bottom where it says Facebook, share on Twitter, and all of these different stuff. It's just another button added, so it links to our website. And that's how we will try and grow the service.
Oh, I see. I have been speaking with Noah Magel, co-founder of N2 Kindle. Thanks, Noah.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this week. Next week's guests will be Chris Schloop and Aaron Kotacek, two members of the Amazon